Welcome to ACT Fitness Radio, the podcast teaching you to aspire, conquer, and transform your body and mind. Here's your host, Jaylene Interviews.
All right, welcome to ACT Fitness Radio, coming to you from Whittier, California. My name is Jaylene. I have a special treat for you today, folks. The one, the only professional Spartan, Adam Castro.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
Long drive, long trip over.
Oh yeah. But you know what? I got here safely,
That's
at
important,
least,
right?
and I love this city. You guys have an In-N-Out and a Starbucks.
We just got that. Yeah. Whittier's been here for I don't know how long, and we just got that In-N-Out.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love In-N-Out.
I know, me too.
I love pizza too.
Yes.
And I actually had pizza the day of my last race. That was over in Big Bear.
You did?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
I think I saw you there.
I think I might have seen you there too.
We're joking, you guys. But we had an awesome time in Big Bear. This episode is going to kind of cover what happened over in Big Bear. Jaylene is going to be asking me a couple questions regarding that race, because I want you guys to have an in-depth insight into what I went through in the race. And what I aspired towards and what I conquered and how I've been transformed by it.
Bam.
Bam.
That's right.
But yeah, first off, I do want to go ahead and say this is my second race of the year. It was another sprint. I did my trifecta last year, 2017.
Correct.
And I decided after I did that last Big Bear Beast in October of 2017, I really did decide that I did not want to do another Super or Beast. And the reason being because I just felt so damaged after that.
Like spiritually, or?
I broke spiritually, yes. No. No, after the race, my hips, my shoulders, my body, my quad, my ankles, like everything just felt so damaged. And you can even go back into that episode. I probably was like talking amazing things of it the day of or the week of, whatever. But I looking back on it now, I do just see how damaged my body was and how long it took me to get back to a good place physically and with my fitness. And I just kind of realized, like, I don't think it's worth it. I just don't see it as worth it to go through all of that just to say that I did it.
Yeah. Right.
So, and knowing I'm not at the place physically, I don't even want to be at the place physically where I would be able to compete with those in those long distance running. Like those guys are skinny, those guys are small, those guys aren't really focused on maximal power or strength. They're focused on long distance endurance. Going for 13 miles and sometimes more in hill training and being able to perform well and continue to run. And for me, that's just not specific to what I wanted to do. So
it was a combination of all of these things that made you decide to stick to the sprint specifically.
Yeah. And I kind of decided that 3 to 5 mile range was going to be a lot better for me instead of a 13-mile race.
Yeah. How exactly did you feel after the 13?
I just felt damaged. Like I felt really drained. Like right after the race, I felt drained. Felt totally drained. My body was in a little bit of shock because it was really cold outside, and I had just gotten into the cold water. At the end of the race, you'd go under this cold water, and so my body was just in complete shock. I was shivering. If you remember from that day, we had to go and get coffee just because I needed something to warm me up.
Yeah, warm your hands even.
Yeah. And I just felt accomplished, but damaged.
How did you feel during the race?
I felt okay. In the first portion. I had gone with a group in the beginning, and we had walked a lot of the beginning portion. And I had decided midway through, simply because you were waiting for me at the bottom, I was like, I better kind of hurry up this race and go a little bit faster. I ended up leaving that group and just trying to push a little bit harder into the obstacles. I felt really, really good going through at that point. But then there was a point towards the end when they started bringing back some hills that my body just started shutting down, especially in the downhill. People don't realize how damaging downhill running can be on the body, and they'll get this lactic acid buildup and swelling of the legs when you walk uphill, when you climb and you hike uphill. But the downhill is what really causes the most damage to the body, because you are striking the ground with your joints and the weight of your body with each and every step.
Sure. Yeah.
And it can cause a lot of damage to your hips and your core.
That's so interesting to me, because it's not necessarily the obstacles that are going to be super damaging or super strenuous, and it's not even necessarily the mileage, but it is the hills.
Yeah, and it's the skill that comes with the running in these terrains that really does challenge the racer. You'll hear all the time that Spartan is a runner's race, because it's a runner's race, because a lot of it is running, or a lot of it is learning how to make it through these different terrains where you're going uphill and you're going downhill and you're going flat and you're going in these hills and all these different terrains of mud and rocks and grass and water. And you really do have to learn how to run in all of those different terrains.
Where was the beast?
Big Bear.
Big Bear.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then where was the first, I don't remember, where was the first sprint that you did?
First sprint was at Lake Elsinore.
Okay.
So there was a big difference between those as well, because Lake Elsinore was very flat. It was very, very flat. And I was even told how lucky I was for having that be my first race because of how flat it was.
Wasn't that also the first time that they had it at Lake Elsinore? I want to say that was the first sprint that was there.
I believe so, yeah, because normally they have it in Temecula.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So, and then this last sprint that you did was also in Big Bear.
Yes.
So let's talk about, because you had just done, prior to the sprint that you just did in Big Bear, you had also done the Beast there, right?
That was a whole year ago, in October.
Okay, so let's talk about how different that was a year later, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Sprint and the Beast are completely different in mileage, but it was the same place.
Yeah.
Right? The same place, the same types of hills. So talk to us about how different that was a year later.
A year, I knew what to expect. So that was the best part about being there at Big Bear twice, was that I knew what to expect. I knew there was going to be a lot of hills. And I did know pretty much what the format was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, I knew that I'd be climbing up the hill in the first portion of the race. There would probably be a good flat or up and down hill in the middle section, and then there would be a nice steep downhill towards the end. So I did expect that, because of what I went through in the Beast. Even though it was a longer course and this sprint was a shorter course, I knew basically what I was getting into. Mm-hmm. What was different, though, was that these hills that we started off on in the sprint were much steeper than the hills that we started off on in the Beast last year. And I feel like the downhill was also a lot steeper this year rather than last year. They did a really good job last year of making you go diagonal, doing a diagonal downhill, whereas this year they made you just go straight down to the point where you were almost scared of falling on your butt as you're running down, or as you're trying to bring yourself down the hill. Scared of hurting yourself or not having a good foot placement. So those were huge differences. The weather was a lot better this year.
I was going to say the weather was a lot different. It was so windy.
Yeah. The weather was a whole lot better this year than last year, and I was really, really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because it was a nice, good breeze. The sun was out, so it wasn't too hot, wasn't too cold. It was perfect this year. I was really happy about that.
Yeah, it was really nice. I remember the time that you did the Beast, the wind was just a huge issue, right?
Yeah.
Like your allergies were acting up.
Yeah.
The dirt was not only getting in your nose, it was getting in your eyes. I mean, not just you, right? Like I'm sure everybody was experiencing that. So that's good.
Yeah.
And at least you were prepared, even though it was a year later, you were prepared for the same type of setup.
Yeah, and this actually was so much more comfortable as far as weather than the Chino Hills race that we did earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That was the sprint that I had done before this one, where there was just so much dust everywhere. It was getting in my mouth and my eyes. I could barely breathe. Like this weather was really, really good for racing.
Yeah. And it was beautiful too.
It was so beautiful up there.
So talk to us about the obstacles also. Let's go through how many different obstacles are there within the Spartan race? I don't always remember.
For the Beast, there's going to be about 30. I believe about 30. For the Supers, there's about 25.
Okay.
And for the Sprints, which are the ones I'm doing this year, there's about 20.
Okay. So and then you don't always know which obstacles are going to be within the race until, what is it, the day before or the day of?
It's a couple days before. They do release the obstacles in the map or some of the obstacles sometimes. Sometimes they'll give you all of them, sometimes they'll only give you some. They do release some of the obstacles I think it's about 2 or 3 days beforehand. So you do have a pretty good idea about what you're going to be up against. You don't have enough time to really train for it. They don't give out that information that soon in advance.
Right.
But you can pretty much guess what kind of obstacles are going to be there. Like some really common ones that they're putting out right now and difficult ones are going to be like Olympus or, rope climb or slip walls, multi-rigs. The sandbag carries, the bucket carries. These are all obstacles that they're pretty much putting in every single race that you need to be ready for when you train for a Spartan race.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about the each individual obstacle course that you faced during the race.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's walk through the ones that you went through and talk a little bit about that.
So I mean, let's talk about the biggest obstacle of all, which is the actual terrain. So. Okay. You're starting off at I believe it's about 6,000 feet of elevation. So right away, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. We're only here. We're actually where I've been training has been 400 to 700 feet of elevation. So right there, you can tell the huge difference in elevation that going to the Big Bear sprint is going to give. It's over 5,000 difference in elevation. So luckily it did not have a huge effect on me. It did not have a huge effect on me. I could feel my heart rate spike throughout the race, but the elevation wasn't too dramatic to where I felt like I couldn't breathe, because I have experienced that before. Running very, very early in Big Bear in past years that I've been up in Big Bear.
Right.
But because I've been training to at least handle a good 300, 400 feet of difference in elevation.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though the elevation is so significantly different between what we're training at and what Big Bear is, it's still a higher elevation than normal.
Yeah.
So it's still going to prepare you in some way.
Yeah, so I just made sure that I was prepared for being able to run from a low elevation to a higher elevation, and to train myself to my heart rate and everything to handle that, train my body to calm down the heart rate as best as possible. And that's really the best thing that you can do when you're dealing in an elevation that's going to make it harder to breathe. You just make sure you control your heart rate as best as possible so that you won't spike up your heart rate and end up burning yourself out.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
that was the first obstacle, was just dealing with the elevation. So we start off the race at the bottom of the hill, at the bottom of Snow Summit ski resort. And
so is this directly after the start line or just shortly thereafter?
The uphill?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we start off at the start line. They call us off, and then boom, we're going. There's a little bit of flat, and then there's a huge uphill. There's a huge uphill that we end up going up. And I was training to run uphill. I had trained to run up any hill that I was going to face.
Yeah.
But I really didn't take into consideration the strategy in walking up these hills.
Yeah, right. In which you need to get over the hill.
Yeah. And when I started to run, and I'm in the elite course, the elite heat, where I've got people like Ben Greenfield in front of me, who I highly look up to. I was not expecting to pass him up. And honestly, when I started this race and saw that he was going to be in this heat with me, I was set on learning from him, knowing that he'd probably be in front of me during this race, and just thinking like, okay, whatever he does, I'm going to watch. I'm going to make sure I study as I'm doing this race and push myself to be right behind him if I can. When we started this race, about 2 minutes in, everybody started walking, speed hiking. I don't want to say walking, because it really was speed hiking. Everyone was trying to walk up this hill as fast as possible, speed hiking as best as possible. And when you speed hike, you're not just taking steps, you are pushing your legs. You're using your arms to help your legs to come up. And this was a great challenge, because when you do this, you also have to make sure your heart rate is down, because if you go too hard, you're going to end up breathing super heavy, and it's only going to make your legs build up with lactic acid even faster.
Well, and that gives off less oxygen to your brain also.
And you end up just getting more dehydrated, and you feel like gassing out and stopping even more. And I honestly did feel like stopping about 5 minutes into the actual course. I really did feel like giving up and stopping. But as we went up this hill, I did see a group of people behind me and a group of people in front of me. I saw two groups kind of breaking off from each other, and I was right in the middle. And I decided, hey, I'm not going to be a part of the group in the back.
Yeah.
I'm going to really try to push as hard as I can and push and push and push and make it forward. So that hill really was a huge obstacle. So we go up this hill, and as we're going up this hill, there's the overwalls. This is the first set of obstacles, the overwalls. So you basically just jump over a set of walls, which, oh my gosh, to walk up a hill that's blasting your quads, and then to jump over a wall and then continue to walk up that hill. It just spikes up the heart rate, and you really have to work really hard to just calm your body down. Luckily, those walls weren't too high, so you didn't have to exert too much energy, but it was enough to challenge you and enough to spike up the heart rate. So after those walls, there was another uphill, a slight downhill, a very slight downhill, which I did jog a little bit. And this is where I started to see people starting the next obstacle, which was the over-under through. And the over-under through is when there's a wall that you have to jump over. There's a wall that you have to climb under. They leave a little bit of room for you to climb under. And then there's a wall where there's a little hole in the middle, and you jump through that hole. Okay. And I was already seeing people go through it, and I decided, all right, that guy right there, the guy that's right in front of me, he's a little while away, I'm going to pass him up. I decided right then I'm going to pass him up, but I'm going to run my race. Yeah. I'm going to pace myself. As I'm walking up these hills, I'm thinking I'm a good downhill runner. I am a decent downhill runner. I work really hard at that in my training. I train at a hill with that, like I said, it goes from 400 feet of elevation to 700 feet of elevation. So, and it does that straight up, straight down. And so I have plenty of practice with running downhill. And I was able to do that with some speed.
So just really quickly, about how many miles would you say you were going uphill for the first portion of the race?
At least 1.5 miles to 2 miles. Okay. So it was a good portion.
That's a good portion, yeah.
And a lot of these obstacles were in that uphill. So even that over under through, we were doing that while going uphill, so it made it even harder.
Uphill, yeah.
Wow. So I go through that, and the difference between going over under through flat and going over under through on an incline is that you just move so much slower
on the incline.
Oh yeah, you just move so much. Yeah. I've been able to fly through that in other races, but this one you just go so slow.
Yeah.
And then there was a 6-foot wall. There was a 6-foot wall that I do believe we went over. I can't even remember if that came earlier or later, but going through these obstacles on the incline, super difficult because you're fighting against gravity and you have to push yourself. So when we went through that, the guy that I decided to pass up because there was a steep incline right there, I was walking right behind him and I saw him throw up a little bit. Yeah, I saw him throw up a little bit. Uh-oh. And right then and there, I was like, okay, I'm not working that hard. Aww. Like, I'm working hard, but I'm not working that hard. I like I said, I wanted to stop, so I was definitely pushing myself to not stop.
Yeah.
I told myself, do not stop. Unless there's a water station, because they do have some water stations, and believe me, I was already wanting water 2 minutes in, so this was definitely a race where you would want to stop at those water stations. And you kind of have to remember that this is a race that has a lot of hills, has a lot of obstacles, and you have to play the long game. You have to realize that if I stop for 10 seconds to relax my body for the sake of lowering my heart rate to be able to walk faster up these hills, it's going to be better than me just trying to blast through everything and spike up my heart rate and then end up burning out.
Right.
So yeah, I did end up stopping at the next water station, which is where I was able to pass the guy who ended up throwing up right in front of me.
And we also don't know, what he had for breakfast, if anything.
Yeah.
There's just so many things to take into consideration.
Yeah, and that's something we'll talk about later on too, about like how I prepared and what I did for that. But I stopped at the water station, drank a little bit of water, calmed my heart rate, and it was a downhill. So I was like, okay, this is perfect because I'll just lower down my heart rate and then I'll start to open up. Well, I go downhill, turn a corner, and boom, there is the barbed wire crawl.
Fun.
On an incline.
Wow.
Up a hill.
Gee. Oh my gosh.
So,
I can't even imagine if you would have got stuck in that.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the incline on a hill. Ah!
So I'm going, I'm like, oh man. So it was good that I had stopped, because if I had just kind of blown through that, I don't know if my heart rate would have allowed for me to just kind of go right into doing the barbed wire crawl.
How many feet is that barbed wire course?
I couldn't say for certain, but I believe it would be somewhere around 50 to 100, I can't say for certain. 50 to 100 yards, yeah.
Wow.
So would it be 50 yards. I'd say about 50 yards.
50 yards, okay.
Yeah, so it was a good long while.
Yeah.
And I could be completely wrong, but it was enough for you to be able to have to work through it for a while. And I go under the barbed wire and I start to roll because it was on a slight incline. And when you're rolling, it does save energy from your core. It does save energy from your legs. So it's a lot easier to do than crawling. But at a certain point, the incline was a little too high for me to even roll, so I had to start crawling. So I went to the side of the barbed wire where it comes up a little bit. If you start to crawl, but you're in the middle, you're kind of playing with the dip of the wires, and so you have more of a chance of getting that barbed wire caught on you if you're in that spot than if you were hugging the pole that the barbed wires are on. So I knew that, so I'm gonna stick to the sides and I'm gonna do my best to just kind of be right under the wire. I was lucky enough to be able to be on my knees even as I'm crawling forward. So I just kind of positioned my lower back and glutes to not be up in the air. I didn't want to stick my butt out under the wires.
Yeah.
And I was able to get through. And because I was crawling, unlike most other races where I've rolled through the whole thing, I had my wits about me. I wasn't disoriented, so I didn't need it. I didn't need a time to get my bearings as I stood up. So I was able to just continue going forward. And I actually was able to run a little bit of the next hill because my quads did have a little bit of a break.
Have you ever gotten caught on the barbed wire?
Yeah.
How is that?
As long as you're not being reckless, a small snag isn't a big deal because you can just kind of either pull your shirt off of it or pull your pants off of it.
Have you gotten skin contact?
No, luckily, and I honestly that's why I continue to wear a shirt during the races. It's not just to it's not just because I'm hiding my six pack here. Having clothes on does protect you from things like rocks on the ground, barbed wire when you're crawling through, because it is common for you to get a little bit of a snag, and if your shirt's not there to protect you, it's going to end up pulling some skin, and honestly that's just something I don't want to deal with as I'm running through the race. We get through the barbed wire crawl. We go over a 7-foot wall, which was a little bit more difficult, but I was still able to get through it. And then we come up on an Atlas carry.
What is the Atlas carry?
So an Atlas carry is when you pick up a stone, which I believe has to be somewhere between like 60 and 80 pounds, because it wasn't easy, but it wasn't too difficult either. So it had to have been about 60 to 80 pounds. And so I'm coming up to the Atlas stone. The obstacle is you pick up the stone, you go forward about 20 feet or so, 25 feet, and you put it down, you do 5 burpees, you pick it up, and then you walk back. Well, as I'm coming up, I'm seeing some of the elite guys who are in front of me really struggling with the obstacle. And because I do a lot of powerlifting training and strength training, this was just so easy. I didn't need to bend down. I didn't need to go down on my knees. I was able to just kind of stiff-legged deadlift, kind of pick it up and just walk forward, do the burpees, pick it up again and move. So right then and there I realized a lot of these guys who are running this race with me, I'm going to be able to use those strength obstacles as my advantage to pass them up. So I also felt comforted at that moment, because I realized I don't have to worry if someone passes me here. I don't have to worry if I'm right behind someone here. I can pass them up later on. And it was at this time too that I'd found someone that I've now dubbed as a skinny kid. Those of you who have heard this story with me know about Skinny Kid. This guy must have been no older than 18 years old. Couldn't have been older than 18 years old, maybe a little bit, but had this kind of wavy, long, blonde hair, and he's a skinny dude, and he was in front of me, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna try to pass up Skinny Kid when I can. Again, I'm just running my race, but I'm gonna try to pass him up if I can. And as we go up to the next obstacle, which was the monkey bars, I had passed him up right there. He hesitated a little bit. He hesitated at the monkey bars, and I was able to pass him up at that point. Well, I am now running on flat surface after those monkey bars. So I was actually able to open up and jog a little bit and actually run the race. So as I'm running this race, I am deciding I'm not going to push at this moment yet, because I know I'm still in the first portion of this race. I'm not halfway through yet. I'm not even halfway through yet. So I need to still pace myself, because I know another hill is coming. And at that point, Skinny Kid comes up right behind me and passes me up. And I just tell myself, don't be discouraged. You've got plenty of obstacles to take advantage of in order to move forward. You've got plenty of obstacles in order to move forward. And at this time, we come up to another hill, as I knew that we would end up coming up to another hill. And I just decided every single hill, I'm just going to walk. And Skinny Kid ended up running up that hill.
There he is again.
Yeah, Skinny Kid ended up running up that hill, which was not good, because he ended up walking, and I could tell that he was burning himself out. So we were now going at the same pace, and he was a little bit in front of me, and at the top of the hill, he had to walk, and I was able to run. So I was able to come back up and catch up with him. Now, as I'm catching up with him, I could tell that he was feeling the pressure of needing to go faster, because he was starting to run as I was coming up right behind him. So I realized real quick, he's feeling that pressure from me. He's starting to move faster than he wants to. As long as I run my race, and he pushes himself because of me, his heart rate is going to be jacked up, and my heart rate's going to be right where I want it to be. So that's when we came up to the sandbag carry. Now with the sandbag carry, and you've known this because you've seen me train for this, I've been training to run with the sandbag.
Yes.
Ever since I saw the Elite Wave in some of the beasts, like on the NBC shows or on the live streams, and I saw that they were running with the bag, I'm like, hey, if that's the standard, then I need to start training and knowing how to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I picked up that bag, I'm like, I'm running with this thing.
How much are those bags? How many pounds do they weigh? Excuse me.
I'm pretty sure about 70 to 80 pounds. Yeah, that one.
For the men?
For the men.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty sure 70 to 80 pounds.
Cool.
And I did run with it, at least in the first portion, because they were sneaky. They made you go on a downhill, and I was able to run that one. But then you loop back around and go uphill. I tried to run the uphill, but after all of that speed hiking, it was pretty much It was pretty much foolish to try to run up with that bag.
Yeah, totally.
But I passed up Skinny Kid right there at the sandbag carry, and started running and jogging this other flat area. And as I was jogging, I see a big guy who I'm terming as big guy because this guy had huge muscles, and he had been in front of us the whole race. And he was just a little while ahead of us. And again, I was like, all right, we haven't even gotten to the downhill yet. We have not even gotten to the downhill yet. I have plenty of time to really open up and try to pass up the people that I want to pass up. So I'm not worried about big guy. Skinny Kid though comes up behind me and he starts passing me up. And he passes me again, and I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm running my race. So I've got Skinny Kid and big guy in eyes length, and Skinny Kid and I both see big guy walk. So I'm like, all right, I'll walk too.
Yeah.
I'm going to conserve energy here. And Skinny Kid walks too. So we're all walking. I'm walking a little bit faster than Skinny Kid because, again, he's feeling the pressure from me, and he's slowing down a lot more, and I'm not. So after that point, both of us end up walking side by side, and I say, hey, what's up, kid? What's your name? He gives me his name, and I totally forgot what it was. I just thought of him as Skinny Kid in my head. But we talk a little bit, and we come up on mile 4. I believe that's where we hit mile 4.
Okay.
And
so almost done.
So almost done because again, this has all been kind of uphill and flat, and unfortunately, it did not feel like it was almost done. Yeah, right. But we come up on the next mile marker, and some other guy was coming up behind us. So I tell him, all right, we're on this the last mile. Let's make it count. And he's like, all right. So he sprints up this hill, and I kind of laughed inside a little bit because I didn't mean to say like, okay, let's give it all we got right now, because I was still running my race. I was still going to pace myself. Yeah. Because again, this is not downhill yet. But he kind of shot up the hill, and I just kind of jogged up the hill, and we came up to the Herkhoist. And this is one of those obstacles that, again, I wasn't worried about. I've got plenty of upper body strength that was going to help me with the Herkhoist. So
can you explain what that is?
The Herkhoist is basically an obstacle where you are coming up to a rope, and the rope is attached to a pulley, which is attached to a sandbag. When you pull on the rope, the sandbag comes up, and I think for the men, the sandbag has got to be somewhere around 120 pounds. Okay. Which feels easier than it sounds because of that pulley. Yeah. But it's still difficult to handle. And then once you pull it up to the very top of the pulley, you have to guide it down. If you drop it down, you get burpees. You get disqualified. That's right. So you have to guide it down. So I do the pulley. I pass him up again. And then he sprints down and he tries to pass me up. So we're kind of doing this back and forth a little bit as we do this race. Mm-hmm. And then we come up to the A-frame cargo, which the A-frame cargo is this big old cargo net A-frame. It is the scariest obstacle to me, at least. It's this because it takes you freaking high. I don't even know how high, but it's the scariest thing because you could totally fall through the cargo net and die. And that's exactly what I think about as I'm going up and I'm going down. Oh, my goodness. Other elite Spartans are able to kind of like swing themselves down. And I wanted to try that this time around. But as I came up over, I was like, nope, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna gracefully come up, gracefully come down. And that was when I actually got to see Rhea Coble pass us up. Rhea Coble is an elite women Spartan racer, and she actually won the Big Bear Beast the day before, and she went on to win the Big Bear Sprint the day that I was running that race.
That's right. Congratulations.
And that was really cool because when you see someone at that elite level in action and see what they're doing at so late in the race, again, like I wanted to do with Ben Greenfield towards the beginning of the race, and then he ended up passing us up. I just wanted to study. I was just like, what is she doing? She's like leading with her hips. She's making sure that she's efficient in her movement, and she really did push through that portion of the race. And that was all I was able to see. But it was.
Did you get to see her tactic for coming down?
I did not. I was too scared for my own life.
Okay.
As I was coming down the A-frame, but I'm pretty sure she either was sliding down efficiently or she was flinging herself over that portion. But she just flew down the hill after that. After the A-frame was when we really started to have the downhill, and I really started to open up with my running. On the A-frame, because I was so scared, Skinny Kid ended up passing me up on the A-frame.
Okay.
So, good for him to take advantage of that opportunity, take advantage of my fear. But that was where the downhill was, so I knew I was going to end up catching up to him.
Yeah.
And we came up on Olympus, which is another. Olympus is a obstacle where it's a small A-frame with the obstacle on both sides of the A-frame, and you've got a hole in the wall on a slant. You've got a hole, a rock climbing handle, and then a chain handle.
Okay.
And you know what? Thinking back on it now, I'm kind of kicking myself in the butt here because we've been rock climbing, and I really should be using the rock climbing handles because it is what I'm strongest at.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
What did you do?
I used the holes. I honestly feel most secure holding onto the holes, and I'll actually. I'm not very efficient on this obstacle. Actually, this is one of those obstacles that I really wish I could practice on at a certain location because I do something that I don't think anyone else does. I actually put my heels on the wall and kick out and outstretch my arms so that I always have heels on the wall and I always have my arms outstretched. As opposed to other people that actually put their toes on the wall and come a little bit closer onto the wall and keep their L's. They keep their elbows bent.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's more efficient than what I'm doing. But I feel like I'm sliding down if I keep my toes on the wall. There's no security there. Whereas if I put my heels on the wall, I feel like I'm able to pull myself and keep myself on that wall.
Yeah.
But I'm also holding way more of my body weight, and I have to risk catching myself each time I move to the side, as opposed to slowly moving to the right or to the left, whichever side you're doing the obstacle.
Yeah.
So I went slow through that, and Skinny Kid was able to go through and pass me there. So Skinny Kid and I are just doing this race together, pushing back and forth here.
Yeah.
But that's when we come up onto the hurdles, and oh my gosh, I'm just like dying at this point because we've got these crazy downhill runs, and I think it was at that point. I think right after Olympus, there was this absolutely insane downhill portion. Like the scariest downhill running I've ever felt in my life. Like no joke. It was so steep that I had no control of my body running down this hill. Absolutely no control. Like my hips were going this way and my feet were going that way. My arms were flailing. I could feel my core getting sore as I was trying to fly down this hill.
Wow.
And I don't know how Skinny Kid did it, but Skinny Kid went down the hill just fine, and I actually didn't see him for a while. And this is where I come up on Big Guy. So before I come up to Big Guy, this is how bad this downhill was. You're going steep downhill. You got all this room too. You got all this room to open up and go downhill. And I'm trying to take wide steps, but again, it's just so steep that I really don't have that much control of my body. And those jerks at Spartan, they have this wide open downhill and they funnel it to a sharp turn to the left into this one-person lane creek. And it's not even just a one-person lane trail. It's like a little tiny watery creek. It was like the only mud spot. They put the only muddy spot right where it was most dangerous, at the bottom of this hill.
Oh, jeez.
So I almost ate it right there. I really almost ate it there. But right there, I was able to catch up to Big Guy, and Big Guy was walking. So right where he was walking was a little bit of an uphill. So I was walking too. And I knew right then and there, this is where I passed Big Guy. Skinny kid was able to do it. This is where I'm going to do it right now. So I end up passing Big Guy, walking past him, and we come up on hurdles. And the hurdles are basically just this beam that you have to jump over. And it's harder to jump over a beam than it is to jump over a wall. Yeah. Because if you come up onto the beam, you can slide under it. You can actually slide under the beam and have to try again to jump over the beam.
Yeah.
But I just kind of, at this point, I'm kind of dragging along, you know. Mm-hmm. But I jump over the beam. I make it over. There's another one. I jump over the beam, make it over. And then we come to the plate drag, and this is where I pass up Skinny Kid.
Oh, dun dun dun!
I know the plate drag and me go way back. My very first race, I was running with this guy. We were both in the first place for our heat, and my plate the plate drag was where he ended up passing me up because my plate would always get stuck. Mm-hmm. And I would pull, and it would get stuck. I'd go over, I'd lift it up. I would pull, it would get stuck. I'd go over and lift it up, and it was the most annoying thing in the world because it ended up setting me back. So when I came up to this plate drag, I made sure I am going to yank that thing as hard as I can so that it does not get stuck. It's going to go over every single hill. And because I did that.
What do you mean get stuck?
The plate drag is you're pulling it on a decline, so you're pulling it up towards you.
Oh, I see. So it would get caught in the dirt.
Yes.
I see.
And not only are you pulling it up towards you, but there's also like little tiny hills, like mounds, little tiny bumps in that path.
Okay.
So very easily you could pull that sled, and it could get stuck right before one of those little mounds.
Gotcha.
So I decided, no, I'm going to pull this thing as hard as I can and not waste any time going over to lift it up. And it worked because I was able to pass up Big Guy and pass up Skinny Kid and leave them behind right then and there. There was a little bit of downhill, and I came up on Bucket Brigade. Bucket Brigade is when you pick up a bucket of rocks. And what the jerks at Spartan do is they make you they make you walk uphill with it, around, and then downhill.
That's actually where I saw you. Yes, I was able to witness you doing that, and I saw some guy fall flat on his ass.
Yeah.
As he was coming up and over. It was right as he was going over the hill.
So I'm actually curious. When did you actually see me? When at what point did you start seeing? Was it on that downhill?
I just saw you. So there was like this bush covering wherever you were coming in from. So I saw you coming in towards the buckets. That's where I saw you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there was a downhill right there. I was totally feeling like crap right there, but I knew, okay, the bucket's here. And I got to pass up. I got to make sure I keep my lead on Skinny Kid and Big Guy. So, so I come over, and this is I actually didn't tell you this, but the guy handing the buckets was like, just grab one and walk up the hill. Don't put it on the shoulders. And I told him, do I have to? I was like, do I have to? And he's like, nope, you don't. You can walk off right there, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's like you can walk straight down right there, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then I'm like, you're not gonna. He had a stick that he was playing with. I'm like, you're not gonna beat me with the stick, are you? And he's like, nope, but I might if you try to leave the obstacle or whatever. and then I pick up the bucket. I'm like, that sounds like a fun new obstacle that you should put in with the train. I'm just trying to make jokes because I know hell is waiting for me as I walk up this hill with the bucket.
He seemed to be playing nice back.
He was playing nice back. Yeah, he was a nice guy. So I pick up the bucket. I walk uphill.
How much does the bucket weigh?
45 or 50 pounds. It's definitely not as bad as the Atlas Stone.
See, that is interesting to me. So it's not that bad. It doesn't weigh that much, but people are so dead by this time.
Yes.
It looked like the hardest thing in the world to get that thing up and over.
Yeah. They told us that the Spartan race, this trail was going to be about 4.6 miles, and I think that they are liars. Because
they said about.
It did not feel like 4.6 miles.
So they didn't lie about.
Yeah, but anyways, they had us walk up the hill with these 45 pounds. Yeah, so we're already 4 miles in, more than 4 miles in. I think this was already like 4.5.
Yeah, this was almost towards the end.
Yes, this is, you could see me. It was just towards the bottom of the hill.
Yeah,
this is pretty much the end. So we are gassed, and you can only imagine how hard it was to walk up those hills with our own body weight, but to add 45 pounds to that, it's just so brutal. And again, you feel like stopping. Not only is your grip giving out, but you've got 45 more pounds of weight on your legs that you've been trying to walk up this steep hill on. This is the same steep hill that I just ran down. So it's brutal. And I'm walking up, and I see some guy that I didn't even have on my radar. This is the guy you're talking about. There's some guy I didn't even have on my radar. He's been ahead of skinny guy and big guy this whole race. I don't know what his name was. I didn't have a name for him. I call him Surfer Dude. I'm gonna call him Surfer Dude because he looked kind of like a surfer or a skater guy.
All right.
But he was up with the bucket, and he was stopping. He had stopped. And then he continued walking, and then he stopped on the corner. What a jerk, too, because I was coming up on that corner. I was even going to ask him right then and there. I was like, did you just stop right here just to make it harder on me? Because then I had to go up a little higher and around
higher than him. Yeah.
So, but anyways.
I'm sure he was just thinking, I just want to stop anywhere.
Yeah. So we came up this hill with the buckets, and I'm telling myself, too, like, I don't remember how it feels to walk downhill with the bucket, but it's got to feel better than walking uphill with the bucket.
Yeah,
so I'm just going to keep going and not stop. So I end up catching up to him right there at that corner. And when I'm right by him and I get past him a little bit, he starts going again too. Now, because this was an uphill that we were walking up against, to go around back to the downhill, we had to walk in this oval shape on a slanted hill.
Yes.
So that was kind of challenging because you're holding the bucket of weight and you're having to kind of step diagonally.
Yeah. And
the ground is not hard dirt. It's actually soft.
It's soft, yeah.
So surfer skater guy ends up falling on his ass. He just slips and he falls. And I felt so bad for him, but I'm like, I'm going to pass you up right now. Somebody I didn't even have on my radar.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I got another guy that I'm passing up. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then one of the other female competitors ends up walking past both of us, and I'm like, all right, you go. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So we go down. I'm walking downhill. It was easier than walking uphill. So much easier. And I put down the bucket. And I head over for the inverted wall. That was the next one, was the inverted wall. Piece of cake. Inverted wall is just a wall that's pointed diagonally, but towards you, so it's a little bit harder to come up. But I went over that, and what sucked was that there was one last uphill portion. Just one more uphill portion. They just wanted you to walk uphill one more time.
Just for the sake of it, you know.
Just for the sake of it.
Have fun.
Just a nice little uphill and then a nice little downhill. Yeah. Whatever. I hate that Spartan does that. They just throw little tiny hills here and there. And then we come up on the spear throw.
Oh, boy.
Oh, the spear throw. Up to this point, I had not failed any obstacle, which has been awesome because
no
every
burpees.
single... No, burpee free, except for the Atlas stone,
Yeah.
because you had to do 5. But burpee free from penalties the whole race, which is awesome because in my previous races, I've failed, I think, 3 obstacles each one.
Yeah.
And so a total of 90 burpees each race.
A lot of burpees.
So
lot of freaking burpees.
I was planning and expecting myself not to fail any obstacle. And I come up on the spear throw, I'm like, all right, I've been training for this. I actually got a chance for a couple days to practice with the spear and a target. And I knew what I was going to do. Every time I threw the spear, it kind of landed a little bit to the left. So I decided I'm going to open up a little bit with my hand grip and try to throw a little to the right so that it lands where it needs to right in front of me. Well, I'm blaming the wind. I'm going to go ahead and blame the wind because I opened up my hand grip. I threw it. I was praying to God as it left my hands, and I was like, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the spear. And the wind blew it further to the right, and it did not hit the hay, unfortunately.
How many chances do you get to throw it before you have to do the burpees?
Just one.
Just one. Oh, crap.
Just one chance.
Oh, dang.
So yeah, I failed the spear throw, and it did not feel nice.
Well, I guess that's good then. Like just one chance and then one set of burpees. At least it's not 3 chances and then a bunch of burpees after a bunch more burpees.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Additional burpees.
And you only do get one shot. I think I like that because it shows do you have the skill or do you not have the skill? Do you have to work on it? Yeah. Are you prepared or not? And I did have time to practice, but I will say I wasn't prepared. I didn't feel completely prepared.
Only a couple of days is still not a lot of time
of
preparation, which was, not really within your reach. Like you didn't have complete control over that. But only a couple days is still not, months long worth of being able to conquer that.
So I end up not succeeding at that one. So I go and do burpees. And what really, really sucked about me doing burpees is that I had not done a single burpee in training for this Spartan race. I did for my last one. I did a lot of burpees.
Yeah.
And I even had this little circuit that I was doing where I was doing like 30 burpees and then running uphill and then downhill and then doing 30 burpees and then running back uphill and downhill. And I kind of had that down. But this time I was like, I'm not failing any obstacle. I'm not going to have to do any burpees. I'm not going to.
It's not an option.
Yeah, it's not an option. So I don't really need to do them. And if I had to do them, then I know that if I had to do burpees, then I know I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I fail this obstacle. Surfer / skater guy comes in. He nails the spear throw and he ends up passing me up as I'm doing burpees. I fly through 20 burpees, and at the 20th burpee, I just like shut down. And I shut down similar to how I shut down in my first super. Towards the end of the race, I had failed the multi-rig, and I was doing burpees, and I just couldn't do any more burpees. I just could not do it. So I'm on there on my knees, just trying to get my heart rate down. And as I'm waiting there, big guy comes up and he throws the spear and he misses. So now he's got to do burpees too. And so I'm 20 burpees ahead of him. So I know, okay, at least I'm going to be in front of big guy. And then skinny kid comes up and he also fails the spear throw.
Oh no.
So it sucks for them, but also it made me feel a little more relaxed because I knew as long as I finish these last 10 burpees before them, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I can see the next obstacle is the tire flip. And I know for certain that tire flip is going to be no problem. So I finished my 10 burpees, and I'm just so gassed. Like for me, after those burpees, I did not want to be there anymore because my heart rate was just so spiked up. I felt burnt out. I just walk over to the tire that I have to flip, and You remember from the super, that was the first time I ever had to encounter the tire flip. I was not able to do it.
Yeah.
And I felt very disappointed with myself that at that point I wasn't able to do it. So I made sure that before every Spartan race, I can deadlift a good 400 pounds so that when I go up to the tire, which is 400 pounds, no problem. I can flip it, no problem.
Right.
So I go up to the tire, I do what I need to do, I flip it over, I flip it again, and the next obstacle is the rope, the rope climb. So I'm just dragging along over to the rope. I'm not running. I'm just walking. I'm just totally gassed. And I look behind me, and I can't see big guy or skinny kid.
Oh no!
So I'm actually like, well, at this point, I know that those are the only people who are behind me. So I'm just gonna wait here and calm down my heart rate and just let myself be as calm as possible moving forward, because they are my competition, and as long as nobody passes me, I'm okay with getting a slower time, as long as nobody passes me, because I wanted the better placing at least.
Yeah.
Now that's not good, because that really wasn't what I should have done, because what if Surfer Guy or somebody wasn't able to do the next obstacle and I could have passed him up, whatever.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I ended up waiting there a little bit. And I knew how hard I would have to engage my body in order to climb that rope. So I was just like, oh man, I don't want to do this, so let me take a second. So I end up doing it, and I like to use the J hold with my legs. So I grab onto the rope, I pull myself up a little bit, and I put one foot in front of the other one, on top of the other one, that kind of holds the rope in place. And then I climb up and then pull myself up again, and that's how I get up the rope. Came down nice and easy. Again, I just feel like a zombie just dragging along here. Look behind me, big guy and skinny kid are still way behind me, so I'm not even worried. And then we come up to the rolling mud. So the rolling mud dunk wall. Okay, it's all rolling mud and then the dunk wall. It's these mounds of mud, and I gotta say, that was the most just soul-breaking obstacle at that point, because I was dead, my heart rate was high, my legs are just dead because of all the hill climbing and running downhill that I'd done, and I just did not want to do it. I just did not want to come up these hills. So and this is when you see me.
Yeah.
Also, you saw me at this point too.
I did.
And what were you thinking at that point when you saw me just kind of lollygagging right there?
Well, okay, so I mean, I obviously was not going through the obstacle, and in the back of my mind, I fully aware that I'm not doing it. I don't know how hard it is, but I also want to be an encouragement, and I know that you can do well. So I'm like, what are you doing walking? Like, what the hell are you doing walking? There is none of that. I was even yelling like, I know you're tired, but you got to do it. You got to push through. You're almost towards the end. I think I was only a little, I don't want to say frustrated, but for lack of a better word, frustrated. I was only a little frustrated because I saw you with the bucket carry, or the rocks.
Uh-huh.
I saw you carry that over the hill, and it was a good long while before I saw you again, and I was like, you are literally almost to the end. Like, this
what
is
happened? Where'd you go?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
This is taking way too much time. Like, because I know you could do better. You know, I totally know that you could push through it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but obviously I also think in my mind, like, you're not in there. You don't know what's going on. Like, you don't know what happened. So, but either way, I'm just like, don't walk. What is that? Get going.
Yeah, and it only got increasingly harder from there because after you go to that mound and you come over it, on the other side of this mound, there's a little bit of water that you got to walk through, and it comes up about to your hips. So all of my lower body that just went through all of that stress was now going to be completely put under shock of super cold water, which, if you don't know, makes it really, really easy for your calves and your quads to end up cramping up. Luckily, that didn't happen to me, but I definitely could feel the shock, and my legs just did not want to work anymore. So you go through two of those. You go over another mound. You go under another big thing of water that you've got to walk through, and then you go to the dunk wall. And the dunk wall is where you have to go under this wall. You submerge your body completely in water. And, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal the first couple times I did it in my first couple races, but for whatever reason now, when I go under that dunk wall and I come out on the other side, my whole body's just shocked. My whole body is just shocked.
It's muddy, right?
It's muddy water, yeah, but the cold is more of what I think shocks me the most, because you're just totally in shock. And I think that's because I've been pushing a little bit harder in my races, in these last couple races. So yeah, after coming over that wall, I just did not want to do anything. The next obstacle was the what was it called? The slip wall. The slip wall. And this is an incline wall that you just went underwater. Your legs are dead. Your arms are dead. Your body's in shock. Your shoes are filled with mud, and you've got to somehow climb up this incline wall that has a rope attached to it so that if you can't do it on your own, you pull yourself up. And I actually waited there for a while because I look back and I'm like, yeah, we're skinny kid and big guy. They're way back there, so I'm not going to try to go as fast as possible here. I'm going to wait until I feel like I'm actually able to do this. So the end of my race was not as strong as it should have been, and I really should have pushed myself all the way to the end.
Yeah, I think even if like your mentality throughout the race, I think, was really good, but despite how you feel towards the end, I think that is really when you just gotta push. Yeah. You just gotta do it.
And in my defense too, like if I didn't fail that spear throw, I really do feel like I could have flown by all of those obstacles and maybe even caught up to someone else that wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, I would say like even since you're competing elite, like it's not the people behind you that you necessarily have to worry about. It's the people that are in front of you that you should be worrying about.
Yes. And that is what I had done in the beginning of the race, but I think I just sold myself short by just sticking to like skinny kid and big guy. And those were the guys that I wanted to beat. Like towards the halfway through the race, you kind of know who your competition is going to be, like who your close competition is going to be. And so when you pick someone to challenge yourself with, it does make the race easier, but at the same time, you don't want to just put yourself in a box and say, as long as I pass up skinny kid and big guy, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I put myself, especially towards the end of the race. I wasn't even thinking about catching up to someone else or catching up to Surfer Guy and hopefully passing him up.
Yeah.
At that point, I had just given up on that and just thought, okay, I'll just make sure I stay in front of them. So I get up the slip wall, come over to the other side. There's just one little mound to come up and over. And when I get to the other side, there's the multi-rig. And at that point of the multi-rig, I again look back behind me. There's nobody there, so I wait a little bit. And this is one I know I can do because we've been rock climbing. And I just did not have. I just wanted to just get through it, you know. I just wanted to be done with it, but to not spike up my heart rate. That was the last one. Got through it with ease. But when I had walked over that finish line, I knew that I just did not finish strong. And I think going into my next race, that's really what I want to feel. I want to feel like I finished the race strong. Like I want to sprint to the end, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely pushed myself hard in the beginning. I pushed myself hard in the middle, all the way to the spear throw. The spear throw really was where I started to change my mindset to a bad one, that I just was doing the bare minimum instead of finishing as strong as possible. So the multi-rig is when you just swing across these rings and you it's just about 8 rings, I think, 8 rings that you swing across.
8.
And no fear in that at all. But as I'm swinging there, I'm thinking like, this is something I could have easily done. Like, what if I could have passed Surfer Dude? You know, what if I could have just flown through here and done it?
Yeah.
So at the end of the race, got my banana, got my fit aid, got my medal, and I honestly felt like, hey, you know, I think I can do this. So we went and we got checked the score right. I found out I got 18th place,
which is not bad out of
44 people in the elite wave.
Yeah.
So 18 out of 44, not bad at all.
Yeah.
Definitely better than my last race that I had done, and it wasn't a better time, but obviously the train was different and the distance was different.
Definitely.
So so I don't count that against myself. It was a good time. Ben Greenfield got like an hour in 1 or 2 minutes, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I was 20 minutes behind him. So just thinking, where could I have gained that 20 minutes? What could I have done, to be on par with the elite, to be on par with those who are getting in the top 10. And I know I can do it. I know I can do it.
Yeah,
so
you can. Absolutely.
I think we'll have to do like a part 2 of this podcast. We'll have to do a part 2 with like what I did to prepare beforehand and things like that, because we're running on an hour here.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So then let's just close with this takeaways
from the race itself.
From the race itself.
Takeaways, I needed to not only practice running up hills, because that did serve me very well. That did absolutely serve me well during the actual race. There were uphills that I was able to run, especially the smaller uphills. But I needed to actually train how to speed walk up hills, how to speed climb. That's something I've never actually practiced before, is speed climbing.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people passed me up. That's where I actually fell behind. It was in the speed climbing. So the hill that I normally run, I think I'm gonna just spend a lot of time having days where I speed climb it instead of run it, and then kind of switch off between speed climbing and running and see if I have a good balance between the two of those things.
And then maybe even incorporating burpees now and again.
Yeah. I think even though I shouldn't have to do them, I should at least be prepared to do them.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah,
just obviously that shouldn't be an option, like you said, but just in case. Yeah.
So and all that is just being able to handle the spike in the heart rate.
Right,
and to be okay with that.
Manipulating
my own heart rate.
Absolutely.
And telling my body to calm down so that I can actually perform well. Under that pressure, under that high heart rate.
Yeah.
And I think also just making sure that I am completely fueled as much as I need to be.
Yeah.
I think I only fueled myself with about 300 calories that morning.
That's
and
fair.
I think I could have done with having like 500 to 600 calories.
Yeah.
I fueled myself with banana. We'll get in depth with that in the next part of this podcast.
That's definitely something we could spend a great deal of time on. Proper preparation and then proper nutrition refuel towards the end of, or at the end of the race. So.
Yeah, but absolutely speed climbing, better heart rate manipulation, and just learning to push myself even harder. And when we get the medal says push harder. The medals this year for 2018 say push harder, and the first time I got the medal, I'm like, forget you.
I remember that. I remember that. Yeah,
is this a slap in the face? I finished my race, and it's like, push harder.
Good job, but push harder.
Yeah. But at the end of this race, I did feel like, you know what? Yeah. I will push harder for the next race, because I think I can get in the top 10 of a race.
Totally.
And I believe I have the potential to work towards that for the next one.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Of course, it's been a pleasure being here. Guys, thank you for bearing with us for this episode of just talking about the race. Mm-hmm. This was an excellent experience, and if you actually want to do a race and train for one, we would love to help you with that. And to teach you how to be prepared for your own race, whether that be for elite, whether that be for age group, or whether that even be just to try it, just to see if you can get through it.
Yeah.
So we have helpful resources that you can go to at our website, www.actfitnessacademy.com. And of course, we've got our Instagram, ACT Fitness Academy. And of course, you've got this podcast, ACT Fitness Radio. So be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review. so that you'll be updated on more new episodes as they come. So, and stay tuned for part 2 of this episode, where we'll be talking about how I prepared in training and in nutrition and clothing and gear and all that stuff for my Big Bear Sprint. So yeah, till next time, guys. Take care. Bye.